Imagine you wake up with a fever. Your throat is on fire, your body aches, you can barely move. Today, you reach for your phone, you Google your symptoms, take some ibuprofen, maybe book a same-day appointment. If it's serious, you go to a hospital where someone runs tests, prescribes medication synthesized in a lab, and monitors your recovery. Now, strip all of that away. No phone, no pills, no hospital, no lab. Just you. A group of maybe 30 people, and a world full of things that want to kill you. This happened to every single one of your ancestors for 300,000 years. And here's what almost nobody asks. What did they actually do? Let's start with what got them sick in the first place, because it wasn't what you think. Hunter-gatherers had very few of the diseases that define modern illness. No heart disease, no type 2 diabetes, almost no obesity. Cancer existed, but rarely. The chronic conditions that kill most people in the developed world today were largely absent. The diseases they faced were different. Parasites, infected wounds, food poisoning, the occasional epidemic from contact with animals, and trauma. A lot of trauma. Broken bones, animal attacks, falls, and injuries from hunting. So when an ancient human got sick, the first question isn't what medicine did they take. It's what kind of sick are we talking about? For wounds, they were surprisingly sophisticated. Archaeologists have found evidence of medicinal plant use going back nearly 800,000 years. At sites across the Near East, researchers analyzed plant remains and found that around 60% of the species present were both edible and medicinal, the same plants used in folk medicine for thousands of years after. Yarrow stops bleeding. Willow bark reduces fever. It contains salicin, the compound we eventually synthesized into aspirin. Honey, which has powerful antibacterial properties, was packed into wounds to prevent infection. They didn't know the chemistry, but they knew it worked. And that knowledge didn't disappear. It was memorized, spoken, passed down through every generation for hundreds of thousands of years. And then there were the shamans. In every hunter-gatherer society ever studied, on every continent, there was someone like this, a healer, a medicine person, someone who existed at the boundary between the physical world and whatever lay beyond it. When you got sick, you didn't just take a plant and lie down. The shaman performed a ceremony. They chanted. They entered a trance state, sometimes through drumming, sometimes through plant-based substances. They claimed to travel to the spirit world, find the cause of your illness, and remove it. One practice documented across 74 independent hunter-gatherer societies worldwide was something anthropologists now call the extraction trick. The shaman would dramatically pull an object from your body, a pebble, an insect, claiming it was the source of your disease. It was theater. Everyone probably knew it was theater. But here's what's strange. It worked. Not in the way we mean when a drug works, but in a very real, measurable way. What the shaman was doing, without knowing it, was engineering one of the most powerful healing mechanisms the human body has. We now call it the placebo effect, and modern science has spent decades trying to understand why it's so much more potent than anyone expected. Placebo doesn't just make you feel better. It changes your biochemistry. It reduces pain by triggering endorphin release. It lowers cortisol. In some conditions, it produces measurable physical improvements. In Parkinson's patients, in people with IBS, in those recovering from surgery. And crucially, research suggests the placebo effect operates most powerfully through human connection. It's not just the pill, it's the person giving it to you, the ritual, the attention. The belief that someone with authority and knowledge is focused entirely on your recovery. But there was something else happening when ancient humans got sick, something even more fundamental. They were never alone. Hunter-gatherer groups lived in close proximity, typically 20 to 50 people, moving together, sleeping near each other, spending virtually every waking hour in shared space. When someone fell ill, the entire group reorganized around that person. Food was brought to them, they were kept warm, someone stayed with them. The sick were not isolated. They were moved to the center. This matters more than it sounds. We now know that social support doesn't just feel good when you're sick, it physically accelerates recovery. Loneliness impairs immune function. Social connection reduces inflammation. The presence of trusted people actually changes how your body fights disease at a cellular level. For 300,000 years, being sick meant being surrounded by people who needed you to recover. The community's survival depended on everyone functioning. You weren't a burden. You were irreplaceable. And then there were the cases even the shaman couldn't fix. Broken limbs, deep infections, skull fractures. Here, ancient humans performed actual surgery. Trepanning, drilling a hole into the skull, is one of the oldest surgical procedures ever documented, found on every inhabited continent, dating back over 9,000 years. And the most remarkable thing isn't that they did it, it's that patients survived. Many skulls show clear bone regrowth around the hole, meaning people lived for years after the procedure. They had no anesthesia as we understand it, but they likely had something. Plant-based substances, opium poppies were used across the ancient Mediterranean. Alcohol, techniques that induced unconsciousness, or at least dulled pain enough to operate. They knew anatomy, not from textbooks, from butchering animals for thousands of generations, from watching wounds heal, from learning what happened when you cut in the wrong place. So here is where we have to ask the question this whole video has been building toward. Were they actually worse off than us? In some ways, obviously yes. An infected tooth today is an inconvenience. For them, it could be fatal. A burst appendix, a difficult childbirth, a serious infection. These were death sentences more often than not. There were real limits to what plants and rituals and community care could do. But in other ways, something was happening around that sick person that we have quietly dismantled. We put sick people alone in sterile rooms. We give them pills instead of presents. We treat the body and almost never the fear, the isolation, the loss of meaning that illness brings. Modern hospitals are extraordinary. The science behind them is the greatest achievement in human history. We have genuinely conquered things that wiped out entire civilizations. But somewhere in the process, we removed the shaman. We took away the ritual. We replaced the circle of people who knew you with a rotating staff who doesn't. And researchers are now discovering that those things weren't primitive add-ons to medicine. They were medicine. The body heals faster when it feels safe, when it feels seen, when it believes recovery is possible because someone it trusts says so. Your ancestors knew this without knowing why. We know why now. We just forgot to keep doing it.